Hi there, and welcome to the Evolving Woman Safe Space Conversations. This is going to be our last conversation for the year 2022, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to bring this amazing guest to you. I am Coach Duquesidine, and I help women evolve into all that they have been purposed and born to be. I am a coach. I am a grandmother, a mother of two adult children, and a Bahamas beach lover. There is nothing more soothing than sitting on an empty beach here in the Bahamas where I reside, being at one with God as I listen to the waves crash on the shore. I've worked with many leading businesses here in the Bahamas, but I also focus on self development and professional development for women. And that is what this platform is all about, the evolving woman. And so tonight, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our guest. And as you are interacting or even catching the replay, I'd like to ask you to give StreamYard permission to use your name so that we can see your comments and engage with you. And so let's welcome our guest for tonight, RayAndra Nairn. Hi, Ray.
Hi, Miss D. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Welcome to the Evolving Woman Safe Space Conversation. And I believe that this topic tonight is a super topic to wrap up the year, the crooked path to purpose. But before we touch our topic, I'd like to ask you to go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewing audience now and later.
Okay, everybody. So, like DeCressa just said not too long ago, my name is RayAndra, but everybody calls me Ray. I think there are a lot of people who don't actually know what my full name is, but RayAndra Nairn. I'm a lover of cameras, but before I get into talking about the things that I do, I'd like to say that I'm a daughter, I am a friend, I am a niece, I'm a cousin, I'm a sister. I'm a leader, and just ultimately, I'm a creative. I enjoy what do I enjoy? I enjoy being at home. I'm a big homebody. I'm an introvert's introvert, and a lot of people don't believe me when I say that because as much as people make me nervous, once I get in a one-on-one setting, and we start connecting on certain topics, then I could go on for hours and hours. But no, I really am an introvert. I love being home. Most days, if I'm not editing or if I'm not dealing with some clients' work, then I'm just laying in my bed. TV could be on for background noise, but as long as I have food and Wi-Fi, then I'm good for the most part.
That's awesome to hear, Ray. Um, as a matter of fact, as I listened to you, I was so super amazed at your introduction because usually when people are asked to share a little bit about who they
Mm-hmm.
are, what they
Mm-hmm.
do, we go into a lot of titles. And so I was really impressed tonight that you spoke more about the characteristics that make you who you are. You are a leader. I love hearing those characteristics about you.
Yeah.
And at first glance, it could be very easy to believe that you are introverted to the place of not talking. But once you are comfortable and warm up a bit, you are definitely all in,
Mm-hmm.
definitely all in. And I know
Absolutely.
tonight we're going to be talking about purpose. But before we get into the cricket part, the purpose though, can you tell me if you came from a large family?
Large family. My extended family is large. So on my father's side, we are Nairns and Colbys. And so I tell everybody if you are a Nairn or a Colby, and I think by extension there's some Evans, some Sweetings, things like that. So my dad is the youngest boy of I think 8 children. And so that means I have a lot of cousins and I have a lot of second cousins, and that's just the Nairn side of the family, right? And so when you look at the Colbys, there's so many cousins that I don't even know. And I'm a little embarrassed to say that, but it's the honest truth. So my extended family, yes. Immediate family, my mother and my father, they're no longer married, but so it's my parents, and then I have an older sister and two younger sisters. So Yeah, my nuclear family is pretty small.
Wow, sounds like a lot of people overall in the
Yeah, yeah,
extended
yeah. Trust
family,
me.
right?
Christmas dinners, well, not really Thanksgiving, but birthdays. When we were younger, it was a big crowd
Yes,
all the time, all the
yes.
time.
Another thing that I love is that you had siblings. You grew up with sisters and
Hmm.
in your immediate home. So it meant that you had your first friends inside of your home, which is,
Yeah.
I think, special for every woman who has had or every man who's had the opportunity to develop those initial bonds at home. I grew up with one brother. We were like 7 years apart. So the connection wasn't as strong as I would have loved for it to be.
Hmm.
So I always love hearing about sibling love and sibling rivalry because you can't live together in a home with other people without having some kind of drama.
Right.
And so, Ray, as you think about your childhood, tell me, does your creativeness and passion for the arts come from anywhere in your childhood? Is it something that you were always interested in?
Yeah, so I've always been a creative from I could remember. My father, I remember him being able to draw and build stuff, and even he started his own business some years ago with silk screen printing and things like that. And so I remember being around him when he was creating the artwork for t-shirts and screens and stuff like that. And I have vivid memories of class projects in like second and third grade, and I loved when he would draw my pictures for me because my elephants, while they were okay, he just made them so much better. So yeah, I remember being artistic in that light. I wasn't the best artist, but compared to my kindergarten friends and even up to high school, my art teachers would always tell me that, you're kind of good at this thing. Maybe you should, you know, consider developing it, that kind of thing. So creative, yeah. When it came to craft, I wouldn't say I was craftsy, but if I really put my mind to something, then I could do it. So that means building, I don't know, little stick houses and things like that. Especially before my second sister was born, I was an only child for the most part because my older sister, she didn't live with us. But yeah, so I had to keep myself occupied, and I would go outside and gather sticks and leaves and all kind of crazy stuff and make stuff out of the things that I found.
I love it. I love it, Ray. Actually, there are a couple of things that immediately jumped into my head. And I came there to tears when I heard you talk about your involvement with your dad when you were a child,
Hmm.
because it's one of the experiences that I missed out on. And so it was so endearing to hear you say that your dad did activities with you and helped you to develop that creative part of your life. And I really feel that that was a blessing for you because I know growing up without my
Hmm.
dad, there were so many questions and voids that were in my life that weren't really filled until I was an adult. So hearing you just share how he was there for you during your younger years, I think is
Yeah.
something really, really special. And to our viewing audience, if you are there and you'd want to just type in chat any of your dreams that you had when you were a child, what were some of the things that you dreamed about doing when you grew up? And the second thing, Ray, is I loved hearing you share that your teacher affirmed you. We all need that when we're young. We need to be validated when we're young and to learn how to validate ourselves so that when we are older, we can now pat ourselves on the back and speak into our own lives. And just hearing you say that your teacher was one of the people who, supported you and affirmed you must have
Hmm.
also made a difference in your life as well. How
Right.
do you believe that impacted you? Just having those two people at such a young age support you.
Okay. Before I answer that, quick question: are we live on Facebook? Because my sisters are asking for the link, and I want to share it with them.
Absolutely.
So if you
I
could just
will
drop
send it
that
to
for me.
you. I'm going to send it to you. Yes, we are live, and I'll go ahead and send it to you.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure. So the question, how did that feel to have them encourage me? To be completely honest with you, my dominant love language is words of affirmation. And so for me, I know I love to hear it and I also love to give it. So at a young age, I was always really shy and self-conscious, and even to this day, I don't really like. Sorry about that. I don't really like being the center of attention. I hate being the focal point where eyes are always on me. And so, growing up, not wanting to be the center of attention, just to hear that from one or two people, it truly made the world to me. It made the world of a difference, and it made me feel like, okay, I guess I thought I was kind of good at this, but hearing somebody else say it just kind of gave me the extra push. um so yeah, from a young age, being affirmed in that light, it made a huge impact on my life.
I imagine that it would make an impact. There are so many similarities between you and my granddaughter, as you spoke about going outside and finding twigs and rocks and leaves.
Hmm.
My granddaughter, that's what she will find, a rock and make it her friend.
Yeah.
Well, she's the only child, and when she visits me, there are no other children. So when I'm not playing with her, or my husband isn't playing with her,
Hmm.
she has like a ton of dogs, but she likes to go outside and find these twigs and play in the dirt. She
Yeah.
occupies herself as well. She's a social bird, mind you, but she also knows how to uh, how to just play by herself and make her experience for herself instead of sitting down and being lonely. So I love hearing you say that as well.
Yeah.
So, Ray, as we continue our conversation, what were some of your passions that developed over the years, from a little girl to the woman that you are today? What would you say were some of the passions that you enjoyed? And as you're watching, audience, drop your passions in the comments too, so that we can engage with you. And Ray knows that she's not alone. But go ahead, Ray. Tell us about some of those passions.
So I grew up, I was very athletic. Um, I loved sports. I think basketball was the one sport that I kind of stuck with from maybe grade six straight up until I graduated from high school. I was really good at it too. And being short, the only position I could play was a point guard. And one of the things I tell people all the time, especially my youth, because I serve in a youth leadership position at my church, is that one, I think it was a couple of Fridays ago, we ended up talking about, their extracurricular activities. And one of them I pulled on the side. I said, believe it or not, I was good at basketball because I was so small. I was really fast. And when it came to making a crossover, because I was so low to the ground, my crossover was very, very, very low. And so by the time, the average height girls tried to, steal my ball, I would already bypass them and make my way toward the rim. And so there was basketball. And like I said, not too long ago, I was fast. So track and field, at one point, my PE teachers and coaches tried to get me to, get more involved in track. But the thing with track is I hate running. And so yeah, with basketball, at least you could stop at certain points and, take a break on the court. But with running, it's just running, running. That's all you do. You run. So there was track for a bit, gymnastics too. Again, because I'm short, short gymnasts are usually really good at it because, the agility, in terms of, body weight and things like that. So I started gymnastics, I think, at 4 or 5. And that was short lived because although I was really, really good at it, again, going back to not wanting people to look at me. And when it came time to competing, I would freeze. And I remember this one, I think that was my last competition actually. I was so afraid of being the center of attention. I don't think I made it through my round. And I remember telling my mother when I left, I said, Mommy, I don't want to do this anymore. And so Yeah, after that, and my coaches again, they were like, you should really, really try to pursue this thing because you're good at it. But again, yeah, no, I made up my mind that, yeah, if I gotta compete, if I could do it without competing, fine. But as long as I gotta go on the floor and it's just me and I gotta pose and flip, and no, it's too many eyes on me.
Ray, as I listened to you, I took so many notes. So many things came to mind because as we talk about basketball, and there are so many stereotypes, right? Like most people think that you need to be tall to be a basketball player, and you
Hmm.
just kind of shattered that stereotype and made us understand and realize that being shorter positioned you to be successful
Yeah,
um,
it
in,
did.
in your role. And so while other people may have beliefs that limit them from making moves towards doing the things that they love, sometimes we have to take a step back and look at what we think is a negative and how that negative can actually be used for our advantage. So I
Most
love the
definitely.
fact that you shared that. And I also love that you were vulnerable enough to share that you hated running, but you were good at track and field because it
Hmm.
made me understand and realize that because we're gifted in something doesn't mean that we have to do that particular thing.
Right.
Our gifts may make room for us, but we don't have to maximize all of them. We should
Hmm.
really focus on the ones that we love. And that was basketball for you.
Hmm.
I want to go a bit deeper though with gymnastics
Oh boy.
because being good at gymnastics and going out there loving it, just not loving the competitive side of it, and really because you didn't want to be seen, I
Hmm.
understand a little bit more about this reluctance to be seen in your giftedness. Where do you believe that comes from?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. This almost feel like therapy because I'm pretty, I'm pretty sure my therapist asked me that before, and I dodged it one way or the other because I couldn't find an answer. But since you put the question before me, I gotta dig a little deep tonight. Where does it come from? I think ultimately nobody wants to be judged for what they feel is authentic, if that makes sense. Um, so by me being okay, so if we just go back to the gymnastics scene, by me being out there on the floor, I'm giving everybody access to look at me. But at the same time, I'm giving them the same access to be critical. And while criticism is good, and I can understand that now that I'm older and looking back at it, I didn't want anybody to think that I wasn't good, if that made sense. Or I didn't want anybody to think that I couldn't do what I was doing properly, if that makes sense. So, jeez, boy, this
That actually it actually makes a lot of sense because a lot of and I want to commend you first of all for still going out there and competing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though you had the fear of judgment, because it speaks to being courageous. It
Yeah,
speaks to taking action in spite of the fear. And on the flip side of that, it also teaches us that um, when we allow other people to get into our heads and it overtakes us, it can limit us. And so I'm also glad to hear that you've somewhat moved from that position. And we're going to come back to this when we talk about you behind the camera.
oh
But I
boy.
love hearing you say that you've grown a bit from that perspective because
Mm-hmm.
other people are judgmental and they can definitely limit us. And we can have the question of what will other people think. And so many of us struggle with that question, what
Sure.
will other people think? And as a result of that struggle, it can derail us. And so I'm happy to hear, though, that as a result of your basketball, track and field, and gymnastics, you learned some valuable life lessons that you've been able to carry forward. And how much of those experiences do you believe taught you to be disciplined in the execution of your work today? But before you answer, I'll give you a second to think about that. We have a we have a viewer saying that she loves sports too. She enjoys watching and playing football. We
Mm-hmm.
have she's also the same user, and she's from Africa. I don't want to mispronounce her name. She I love those names, by the way. She's an introvert, and she also regularly avoids competition because it makes her feel like she's under a lot of pressure. So it means, Ray, that you're not alone, right?
Right.
And then we have Jarrell saying
Oh,
that
that's
this
my
whole
sister, right? That's the older sister.
listen, Jarrell say this whole session is therapy. Jarrell, sis, thank you so much for being here and supporting your sister. So, Ray, let's talk about the discipline that you learned from basketball, track and field, and gymnastics.
Strange enough, I didn't. I think before, well, maybe basketball, right? Because when you think of discipline, there's the element of having to go to practice and having to take care of your body, just, well, not to a certain extent, but taking care of your body, period. Um, it calls for teamwork. It calls for showing up when you don't want to show up. And even on a mental side of things, like you have to be so mentally invested in the game even before you step foot on the court. Because like I said not too long ago, your team is depending on you, your coach is depending on you, and the school at large, right? Because if you win a game, then that means you win a game not just for the team but for the school. And so I would say out of all of the sports that I got involved in, basketball probably taught me the most discipline. And again, because I had to move beyond myself, if that made sense. And there were a lot of times with basketball when I did want to quit, when I didn't want to go to practice, when I didn't want to play. Um, but knowing that my team needed me, and like I said, my coach was dependent on me. Um, it forced me to get outside of my head, get out of my feelings, and just show up for them and for the game.
Awesome. And that taught you discipline. And does that discipline carry through to what you do today? Because I'm ready to dive into what you do today.
For real.
Um,
Um,
would you say
with
that some of
basketball,
that discipline is like evident in how you conduct your work today?
um, I can say that my discipline today, I think, yeah, it is. It has been impacted by it, but not heavily,
Okay.
because by the time I got into this field, I had stopped playing a long time ago. So while I don't want to say no, because the lessons that I would have learned a long time ago, they are, still ingrained in me. Like I said, the gap between ending high school and for the short time that I played on the national team until I got into photography and cameras, it was a big gap. So yes and no, if that makes sense.
Okay. But I hope you all didn't miss that. I hope you all really didn't miss what Ray said. But Ray Gann is saying that the all-time favorite player on Sacs basketball team, Team Sac in the house.
That's my baby
That's the
sister right
sister,
there,
yeah.
Reagan.
But I hope you guys didn't miss what Ray said just now because she said something so super important. She said that she was on the national team. And that means that she had to have executed well enough to be selected to represent nationally. And that speaks to the strength of her ability to be a team player and her ability to really handle the ball and make points or block points or do whatever she needed to do to support her team. So I
And
don't want you to
blockers
minimize
too.
that. I don't want you to minimize that, Ray, because being a national team player is something that really should be celebrated, right?
Mhm.
Now, deeper question. And this question, because we're coming into your passion now, Ray. As I look at the work that you do, I'm one of your clients, and as I look at the work that you do, here's what amazes me. As an introvert and somebody that doesn't want to be seen, your brand is seen. The
Mhm.
MTM brand is a vibrant brand, and the brand speaks to the fact that there is going to be excellence of execution and quality work done. So you're seeing in the work that you do, which brings more work to you. Did you select the camera to avoid being seen?
Okay, so now we getting into my how did I get here story. I didn't choose photography. I didn't choose this camera life. It chose me. And I know that could sound cliche, but I can't tell you a word of lie. Like that is the honest truth. And I think I shared my story with you a couple months ago when we did one of our sessions on the beach. But I'm trying to find a way to condense this story as much as possible. But when I was 19, I got saved for real, for real. Because like we grow up in church and we do the Sunday school thing and we do Christmas plays and you're there, but you're not fully invested. And so I was 19, and at the time I was working at a sign shop called A1 Signs off E Street. Um, and the guy who I worked with, he became like an older brother to me. And I remember, I think he got saved the year before. And so I heard stories about his salvation and how he's a different person. It's not the next. And I remember thinking, well, he's a Christian, but aren't we all Christians? Like, don't we all go to church? So that was my thought process behind it. And so it wasn't until we really started spending like quality time together and I would hear him talk about this God that saved him and would, sorry, would open doors for him with his gift because he's a graphic designer still to this day. And just the work that the Lord would send him and things like that. And again, I mean, I'm 19. I was pretty unstable at the time, and I just didn't really have a direction as to where I wanted to go. So fast forward to the salvation part of it for me. I remember I got into this relationship that I probably shouldn't have been in the first place, and my heart got broken and I just made a mess of my life. And so I remember sitting downstairs in my mom's Jeep. And I remember saying to the Lord, I said, I don't know much about this version of you, but I hear the guy I work with, I say, I hear him talk about you all the time. And so if there's anything that you could do with me, okay. And that was my version of the sinner's prayer because I didn't know it. I never heard of it before. Um, and so that's what I said. So fast forward to a few months later, and I'm getting to how all of this is connected to me buying my camera and things like that. So I remember anyone who knows me, like really, really knows me, knows that I love to sleep. And I mean, there was a time when I would sleep for hours and hours and hours. Now that I'm older, I don't sleep as long as I used to. There's a little element of insomnia, but we'll talk about that for another time. And so, yeah, I love to sleep. And I remember during that time, um, who didn't want to be a DJ wanted to be a photographer. And I've always been the type of person, if everybody was going right, then I would go left. Because again, not really wanting to be seen, not wanting to be, caught up in the crowd, that kind of thing. And so I remember the Lord saying to me, and like, I didn't really understand all of it, but I started going to Bernard's church. And so I was exposed to, like spiritual gifts, the prophetic, things like that. And so I remember the Lord saying to me that He needs me to get this camera. And so again, being newly saved, I'm like, Lord, I think this you, but I ain't too sure. And so I remember saying no because I was like, everybody else want to be a photographer, and I don't do the trying to be like everybody else thing. And so I told him no, and he did not let me sleep for like a week straight. And again, like I just said, I loved to sleep. And so I'm going on day 6 and I can't have a good night's rest. So I'm restless, I'm irritated. And so I think on like the 7th night, I finally said, okay, I'm gonna get this camera. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I don't know how to use it. I don't like people, so I don't know what I can take pictures of. Um, but if this is what I have to do just so I can get back to sleep, then okay, I'll do it.
So what you mean you say no?
Oh yeah, I said no. I told her I was like, I don't want to be a photographer. Like,
Right.
you know,
Wow. That's interesting to hear because and it's weird how we are directed in life because I remember the exact same situation of sleepless nights when I was given an instruction that I refused to carry out. So
mhm,
I know what you're talking about is real because we're haunted until we do what we're called to do.
haunted.
Yes. And
Exactly
so
that.
did you get to go back to sleep?
I did. I did. Thankfully, after I said yes to that, the next step was trying to figure out how I was going to get this camera. And so again, working with the sign shop, I wasn't making a lot of money at that time. I think it was like maybe 110, 120 a week, if all of that. And so every week I would take out my tithes and some money for gas, and then the rest of it I would just save. And so I did that until I had enough money saved to buy the camera. And I don't know if my older sister remembers this, but she was going away. And I remember going on Google and I remember Canon being one of the popular brands. Again, not knowing anything about photography, not knowing which is best for what and none of it. And so I was like, okay, I think people use Canon. I think I could Google something and find a link or something. So I printed it out and I sent it down. I said, I think this is it. So here's the money. If you go on Best Buy, you should be able to find it. And yeah, when she came back, she gave me a little package, like the camera bags with the camera, and I think it came with 2 kit lenses. So
Wow. There's so much wrapped up in what you said just now, and I know we won't have time to get into all of it.
mhm,
Um, I understand from what you're saying is that heartbreak had you in a place of wondering for a while, right? Just thinking about, and here's the thing, Ray, pain leads to purpose.
absolutely.
And when we're sitting in pain, we have the choice of becoming a victim or using that pain to help us cultivate and create a better life. So those
Mhm.
heartbreak experiences really should be used for introspection because we're all going to experience them. So they should
Definitely.
be used for introspection. Um, I'm hearing you repeat that you're not a follower because based on your story, you wanted to swim against the current. Most fish
Mhm.
go with the current, but you wanted to be that person that didn't do what everybody else was doing. And so if
Right.
somebody was doing one thing, you would be the reverse of that. So that leadership quality is in you and has always been in you. And the final thing I want to touch on about the part of your story that you've shared so far is that you may not have a lot, but is what you do with what you have. Because if you think about $110 as a salary, right, we know that that's not a lot
Mhm.
of money, but you made sure that tithing was a priority. So you gave back to God.
Yeah.
Um, and then you took a little for yourself and you saved the rest. That is a powerful story and it is a message that so many people need to hear. We need to hear that if we prioritize and focus with the little that we have and we are
Mhm.
responsible with the little that we have, that we actually can set ourselves up to create more from that. And so you heard the instruction. You heard the instruction to buy the camera. You bought the camera. Your sister purchased it for you, not knowing anything about cameras. But today you are one of, in my opinion anyway, the best photographers in town. I want to
Oh.
hear some of your more memorable experiences with the camera. Where has this purpose led you? Where have you been? What have you done as a result of picking up this purpose?
Man, because of the camera, I'm always amazed because I say to myself all the time, who would think that this piece of metal would open so many doors? And so a lot of people know I used to work at the Nassau Guardian, and I worked as a videographer mainly for social media and the website. So going out, getting stories with a reporter, and then packaging it and putting it together for, like I said, the website and Facebook primarily. Um, because of photography and video, I have been in rooms with prime ministers, um, governor generals, and I photographed the prince when they came down for the royal visit. And so I think that is probably one of the biggest moments of my career. And I made a post on Facebook not too long after that happened. Because I was just in total amazement at that event in itself. But things didn't go as planned, and there was a mix up with the schedule. And so the photographer that was stationed there, and at the time, the Nassau Guardian and Cable Bahamas had a partnership. So there was the TV aspect of things and then the paper side of things. And so on that particular day, like I said, there was a mix up with the scheduling. So the paper photographer had to leave and the cable cameraman had to leave. And so who was the only person that could have represented both companies um present at that particular assignment? Me. And so to this day, I still don't know how I did that, but I was able to get photos for the paper online and then footage for TV for news that night. So I think that was definitely the biggest highlight of my career. I mean, not everybody get to say that they,
Yeah,
photograph the prince. So
yeah. So I see Natalie is saying she's very proud of you, Ray.
that's my mom.
I figured. Proud mom. But what an amazing journey. The Prince and Princess of Wales. That's who we're
Yeah.
talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Prince William and Princess
Kate.
Catherine Kate. Yes,
Yeah.
Kate. And that's amazing that your name is attached to this photo that's going to be used over and over and over and over again as people talk about the royal visit to the
Mm-hmm.
Bahamas. And it adds such an element of credibility to you as a photographer, just having that as a part of your portfolio, and only God knows which doors are going to be opened as a result of that. And
Right.
also having access to so many VIPs, because people watch what we do, they watch how we execute. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing about executing in excellence is that years down the road, these are the people that will be calling on you to do some of the work that they need done because you've executed in such excellence. And so we have here again what God usually asks us to do is strange, but when we obey, we find out that there's a path. Absolutely. So where
Definitely.
you got the instruction to buy the camera, and I know this wasn't a straight path because when we first met, you and I met in studio. You were full time taking pictures, then you stopped. You took on a job. Tell us
Mm-hmm.
about that. How did you come into starting? Because we're beginning to wind down our interview now.
Okay.
How did you come into starting picking up the camera, working for yourself, putting the camera down, and then picking it up again?
Well, definitely from 2010, it was a hobby for me, right? And so, like I said, I didn't start out photographing people because, yeah, people just weren't my thing. But that has changed significantly. Um, yeah, so it was definitely a hobby for me. And I know 2016 was the turning point because at that time I was about to graduate from COB, UB now, but COB then. And my degree is actually in accounting. I don't think many people know that. But I would be in my audit class praying to God that my lecturer didn't catch me on my laptop editing photos and putting videos together. I think if she sees this interview, she'll probably call me and fuss me, even though it's been like 6 years. But that's neither here nor there. Um, and so I started taking on clients between 2015, 2016, seriously. And I remember sitting at graduation thinking that, okay, this accounting thing, I mean, I spent many years pursuing this degree, and here I am naturally gifted at this other thing. Maybe I'm just gonna take a risk. I remember saying, I'm gonna give accounting 5 years. And if that doesn't one no, I said I'll give accounting 5 years, save all the money that I need, and then I will pursue photography and video full time. Well, those plans were short lived because I ended up going on an interview for an accounting job. And right then and there, that's when I knew for sure that accounting wasn't it. And so I left that interview. I had a meeting with my mother and I said, Mommy, I know we spent a whole lot of money on this degree, but I could pay you back one day because I just knew that I didn't want to pursue a career in something that I didn't love. And so to answer your question, 2016 was when I really, really got serious about it. Putting the camera down for a bit after that. I think we may have to pick this conversation up at another time because I'm going to scratch the surface just a little bit, but that could very well open the door for the deeper part of the story, right? So in 2019 was when I started working at the Nassau Guardian. But just before that, I had experienced probably one of the greatest levels, the deepest levels of pain that I've ever encountered in my life. Of course, being heavily involved in the church, I experienced some great level of church hurt. And that moment kind of sent me on a downward spiral. My mental health was in a complete mess. Um, yeah, I was in a bad state. And so, because of all of that unprocessed pain and just not wanting to confront, just how that negatively impacted my soul and my emotions and things like that, um, I shut down completely. And so, while I'm grateful for the job opportunity and that door open, I know I used it to hide. I didn't want to be creative. I didn't want to shoot. I put my camera down because I just didn't want to do anything that wasn't the minimum. So, in getting a real job, that's crazy that I'm saying this now, but it gave me a certain level of safety because I didn't have to hustle. I didn't have to, you know, be an entrepreneur, and I didn't have to take the risk of figuring out how to be creative and create the strategies so I could make a certain amount of money for this particular week. I mean, particular month. And so, in using that job, again, grateful for the experience, but I know I went there to hide because I
Wow.
just didn't want to do all of this anymore.
Wow.
Thankfully, and again, like I said, we got to pick this up another time because I
Yes.
am like speeding this up. Fast forward to 2021 was when I had an encounter with the Lord. This was just last year. So, like I said, 2019 was when I first got saved. 20 then in 2019, what am I saying? When I was 19 was the first when I first got saved. And then in 2019, I put my camera down. 2021 was when the Lord came and he got me. And that event was the turning point that got me back on track. And so again, it was God who introduced me to cameras back then. And it was the same God who restored me and redeemed me to pick the camera back up again. And so here I am, 2022. I stopped making dumb decisions. My camera is in my hand. I'm not putting it down no more unless the Lord instructs me otherwise. So
Wow. I want you to know that you're going to help a lot of people tonight. people who catch the replay as well as those who are live, because here's what I got from you, from what you just shared. Um, I got from you that what starts as a hobby can turn into a career. So we should
Hmm.
never minimize our hobbies, especially when we enjoy them. We immerse ourselves in them. We practice so much that we become an expert in that very thing. And so what we see as a hobby or a side hustle could actually eventually become a full-time role. The second thing I got from you is that all moms are alike, because my mom thought I was going crazy when I step off my page job. Mom, did you think she was going crazy?
Right?
My mom is like,
I was
no,
like,
you
this
need to stay on the same job.
girl
We will get you there.
again.
So all moms, I'm sure, are similar. So they care about us and they want the best for us. And sometimes standing up for ourselves to the parents that we love can be difficult. And so
Mhm.
again, it speaks to having the courage to say, listen, let me pay you back because this is not the thing that I love, which meant that this was something that was really in your soul. I
Mhm.
also got from you that while pain can birth purpose, it takes us into purpose. Pain can actually be the thing that causes us to put purpose down too, because
Absolutely.
there is so much involved in fulfilling the purpose and the call that's on our lives, right? And when you are so invested in doing what's required of you to give your gift to the world and you experience pain as a result, it is a soul cut. It's not a heartbreak. It's actually a soul cut, and those are the hardest to mend. And I
Yeah.
heard you say, Ray, that a lot of this pain stemmed from the church and what happened, incidents that happened in the church. And the church is made up of people, hurt people, broken people. That's who's
Mhm.
going to the church, and they're going there for redemption. They're going there for support, inspiration, motivation. And then there are others in the church who are creating malice or who are living lives that are double standards, or there's so much untruth that could be involved in the church. And our expectation of what should come from the church can be broken when, in their human state,
Mhm.
people in the church who are Christian, when they are being human, they have the capacity to really hurt us and turn us off from the church.
Sure.
The glory is we are not Christian for the church. We are Christian to Christ. And
Mhm.
so wherever we are, we have Christ with us. And so I love hearing the fact that, that hurt caused you to put it down and hide. But during that period of time, you got the opportunity to heal and have your come to Jesus moment, because he doesn't just let us go.
Oh my
He
God, he did not. He did
doesn't
not.
let us go. He may give us some space to like
Man.
be rebellious for a minute, but there's gonna come a time when he snatches us back up.
Mhm.
And so you're back into purpose. And it wasn't a straight path to get you from where you were at 19 to the place where you are commanding your presence as one of the top photographers in the Bahamas. I still am not happy that you didn't photograph my wedding, but that's a story we'll put another day.
But I tell you, that was during
The
the
put down.
part when I put the
Yes,
camera down. I was
yes,
like,
it was.
"Yes,
It
I
was.
love you, but I don't know if I could." Yeah.
So, as we close our interview tonight, can you just share some advice that you would give anyone who is struggling with identifying their purpose or struggling with the crooked path that takes them there?
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes to the top of my head is be patient with yourself, because I know we live in a time where, and they call us the microwave generation, right? So if it doesn't happen overnight, or if it doesn't happen right away, then we get frustrated and just want to throw the whole process away. But I would definitely say be patient, because what you think should happen in 2 weeks just may take 2 years. And it doesn't take away from the fact that you are going to get there. It may not be in the time frame that you think it should, but whether you get there in 2 weeks or 2 years, when you do get there, the most important thing is that you got there, right? So be patient with yourself. I'm a part of an organization called Purpose Awareness, and I'm going to say something, but I can't take credit for it because it's something that our leader Antonia Lightborn has. She's said it so many times. I think everybody who's a part of the organization, it's like a part of our being. She said that the creator knows what the creation was created for, or something along those lines. And so when it comes to purpose, I just want everybody to know that one, you didn't create yourself, someone created you. And so if you want to know what your purpose is, then you should probably go to the one that created you. I know there are a lot of doctrines out there, and being one who has strayed away from the church and, dabbled into all sorts of other belief systems and things like that. Now I can firmly say that there is a higher being, and his name is Jesus. I'm sorry for whoever that offends, but yeah, the Lord has done everything in my life in such a short space of time to the point where I cannot deny that the fact that I'm sitting here tonight is nothing short of a miracle, because there was a point where I was done with Facebook Lives too. And so the fact that I agreed to this and I'm actually doing it is like 180. God flipped it. So just to recap what I said, be patient with yourself and go to God, because He knows exactly why you're here and where He wants to take you. Purpose is so much bigger than us. While I'm grateful for the opportunities and the ways that I've benefited in my life from picking up a camera, I can only imagine the amount of people who are going to be beneficiaries as well, because of, when I tell my story, I tell about where he's brought me from a 19-year-old kid to now a 32-year-old. I just turned 32 on Sunday. Can't believe I said that. Wow, everybody there. But yeah.
Oh, a gorgeous 32-year-old filled with purpose and passion. We make no apologies for our beliefs, Ray. We make no apologies for the fact that we believe that we are designed by purpose to fulfill purpose, and that the God that has breathed the breath, his breath, into
Mhm.
manhood is what actually, or mankind is actually who powers us and gives us the strength, the endurance, and the wisdom to fulfill whatever the purpose is that He has for our lives. I want to thank you so much tonight, Ree, for making that 180, for just being a just. I didn't want to take you too deep in the vulnerability department, but I want to thank you so much for navigating it a little bit with me. And I want to thank you for being a light in the world. I want to thank you for the light that you bring to the world, the positivity that you give, the standard of excellence that you execute in. I love your humble spirit, and that humbleness is also a gift to the world. I know that your beginning, you've been here 32 years, but this is just the beginning of what God
Mhm.
has for you. I speak favor over your life. I speak expansion over your business. I speak expansion over your vision. I speak expansion in your creativity. I speak obedience into your life, so that when you do not feel like doing the thing that you're called to do, your obedience will click in, because God has so much in the world waiting for you at the right time
Right.
in portions. But I see your future so bright. So stick with it, and may God continue to bless you and elevate you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm seeing Anne Laura saying such a good conversation about the journey of purpose living in God. So proud of you, Ray. So we want to thank all of you who are here, Christoph and all of Ray's family, and for all of you that will catch the replay in the future. Have a happy holiday season. As a reminder, this is the final Evolving Woman Safe Space conversation for the year 2022. Thank you for closing us out well, Ray, and take care. Bye bye, everyone. Hang back for me, Ray. Take care,
Okay.
everyone.